where it goes. But guys, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and speaking to myself and Gav about all things music. As I just said, we'll talk about the album, which we've already done a review of. That's already on the channel. So we listen to the album start to finish. But we'll talk about music for yourselves as well. But before we get started with any of it, how are you actually doing, the two of you?
Doing okay, huh?
Great, yeah. I've just cut my grass, so I'm happy as Larry.
And I'm just back for holiday, so I'm even happier.
No bad. Keeping out of trouble.
Oh, aye. We're too old. Too old for that now.
Never too old for trouble.
Oh, aye.
What I like to do with all the guests is we go back to the very beginning. So what I'll do is I'll ask the questions and you can obviously just answer each for yourself. But where originally are the two of you from? Where were you brought up?
Well, I'm still here in Port Glasgow. Always been. I've never moved.
Can he get rid of you?
Can't get rid of me. No. A Port boy through and through.
I was born in Glasgow but grew up in Erskine. Then moved back to Glasgow at the first chance.
But Erskine kicked you out?
Erskine are still asking me to come back, but I'm refusing.
That's fine. The question that I ask a lot of the guests is, were you exposed to music from a very young age? And if so, where did that come from? Was that like parents or siblings? And what type of music were you exposed to from a young age?
Well, you start.
Well, it was just my mum's record collection, basically. 60s, Small Faces, Yardbirds, The Stones. She was never a Beatles fan, but she did buy Beatles records.
Yeah.
So it all came from there, and I just did this basic 60s infatuation and took it a step further.
All the bands that eventually turned into classic sort of...
Yeah, but then I explored the kind of British freak beat scene, the garage punk, the 60s garage punk from America and France, and the psychedelic, early psychedelia. Then that was me. I was...
Yeah. No song.
The world was my oyster, as they say.
For me, it was slightly different. My parents, they had a limited record collection, but what they always did was have the radio on. And I'm going back to the mid-70s, early 70s, and it was Radio Clyde, just from when that launched. And it was very eclectic. And I can still recall some of the kind of tunes and DJs that were on, like Saturday morning. It was all, as I say, very eclectic. But there was always stuff that stood out for me that I can always remember really liking. Things like Pretty Flamingo by Manfred Mann.
Right.
And try to think of some of the others.
There's not many.
Aye, there is. Smokey Robinson, stuff like that. You know, that always kind of resonated with me.
I suppose radio was maybe more important back then because, unlike today, you didn't have this unlimited supply of music from anywhere in the world in
Absolutely.
your pocket. So you kind of, I suppose your first thing would have been the radio, because it's expensive having to go out and buy music, albeit you would probably have bought some. But give us a wee laugh. And do you remember for each of you, what was the first album that you ever bought with your own money? Do you remember?
Well, the first single I ever bought, I keep on saying it was Sunday Girl, the Blondie, but it was Sarah Brightman that I lost my heart to, a Starship Trooper.
It's even better.
So I can't quite get away with a lie anymore since I've come out.
For me, my first single, and I don't know why we remember were singles, Madness, Return of the Las Palmas 7, which was an instrumental one with one word in it, waiter. So I can remember all the words.
No bad.
My first album, I think, I don't know. I think it might have been. The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, the Sex Pistols, the double one. So
Yeah.
That's a pretty good one to admit to.
Album that I bought with my own money. Nah.
I want to know what it is now.
No, I'm not telling you. It was child.
The first one I can remember, buying is, there's one that me and my brother, I've got a slightly younger brother and I've got an older brother. My older brother did have Great Rock and Roll Swindle and Parallel Lines and stuff like that. But the first one I remember buying was More Specials, the second Specials album, because my brother had the first one. So my parents' view was no point having two copies in the house. You know?
Of course. But the only problem is you probably weren't allowed to borrow the other one.
Well, yeah. My brother still to this day, and we're both in our mid-50s, my brother says to me, "Have you still got some of my records?"
Sleep. My brother and sisters wouldn't dare touch my records. Well, they would.
Once you discovered music, you've obviously picked up the musical. Can you remember what your first instrument was, and what instruments do you play now? How has it changed? Did you stick with the same instrument or instruments?
Yeah.
How did you develop that?
For me, my first instrument was bass guitar. Now I'm more so playing lead guitar, but that was a transition that was a logical one when we widened the Dewey Lester and the 603 to bring on some other people for the recording.
Yeah.
Jerry Love, former Teenage Fan Club bass player, was happy to be involved, and you don't tell him that he's not allowed to play bass. So I took a step to one side.
What you've just is that you just got to know your place.
Absolutely, yes.
What bass players do.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, it wasn't guitar, it was glockenspiel he moved on to.
That's probably true. No, in school, I very briefly, for I think about 6 months, played the euphonium.
Hey, what's that?
That is a big tuba thing, is it?
It's a small tuba. Yeah,
Right.
a small tuba or a big trumpet.
Right, okay.
It's just always been guitar, basically.
Yeah.
I play a bit of ukulele, I can play bass, but it's mostly guitar. I started playing when I was about 16. One of my pals wanted to start a band, and we needed another guitarist. And
Sorry, which one of you is singing, doing the main vocals?
me,
So did the vocals come later on, and was the guitar first?
the guitar was always first, yeah, but I still did a wee bit of singing, and then I decided that I was rather just stick to playing guitar than singing. So me and Craig had another band. We had a different singer.
Yeah.
And then I went back to the singing. Well, went back to playing just guitar then.
Yeah.
Singing's a funny one because sometimes it's whoever's brave enough to step in front of the microphone because the band needs a singer.
Yeah.
But not everybody's willing to step in front of the microphone because it's probably, I sometimes think it's the hardest instrument of all of them is that singing, because every instrument you need to have a level of talent in order to play the instrument, but the singing is the one instrument that you need a level of talent, but there's also a huge part of it is confidence, which you can't teach someone confidence. You've got to learn that. And I've seen it hold a lot of people back as well. They've got a great voice, but if you don't have the confidence, and even with singing, you can get away with, you can almost have not a great voice, but if you've got the confidence, you can still...
Yeah, aye.
Absolutely.
It's a tricky one, but Yeah, so the singing came later on for yourself, and it was almost like, we need a singer. I'm going to do it.
No, I was always going to do the singing in this one anyway.
Right.
It's just, it was a progression of about 10 years.
All right. Okay.
But I've already been singing with another band. Another thing about singing as well, which I think is, you can sing away in the house and all that and think, but standing in front of a mic, you've got to project your voice as well. So it's a different style you've got to learn, basically.
Yeah. And did you find your musical influences kind of helped change where you swayed between singing and guitar? You know. Kevin, with so many famous euphonium players that swayed you back on.
No, absolutely.
I always wanted to play violin, but it was one of them things that's always just passed me by. Piano as well, I'll tinkle a wee bit, but no, it's always... I don't know. I think I'd rather be a concert pianist than a rock star.
Through and through. But with me, it was guitar I wanted to play first, and it was one of those things we needed a bass player. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. And that kind of made me into it and stuck with it ever since. It's easier, it's only got 4 strings.
It's funny though, the thing with the bass guitar, you get a lot of guitarists, people that start on the guitar and then they go, I'm going to go and learn the bass, and they automatically think it's going to be easier because it's like a guitar, but it's got 4 strings rather than 6.
Yeah.
But if you like, I'm a guitarist who thinks he can play bass until I sit down with a bass player, and then I realise that I'm a guitarist who thinks they can play bass. I can obviously follow chord patterns, but it's all the wee things that bass players do, but it would never enter my head to do that because I approach it from a guitar point of view. Bass player approaches it as a bass player.
I would never say that my bass playing had a particular style. I never learned. I just did. I just played what came to my head, and to some extent, the interesting thing talking about the Dewey Lester album, some of the things that I wrote on bass when we were writing the songs, I then transferred onto the lead guitar. So there's. I didn't write it as traditional bass lines, and some of the bass lines, Jerry said that's perfect, don't need to change that. Other ones he wrote far more appropriate and better bass lines for, but the bass lines that were there, I was mostly able to say, well, I could play that as a lead and it fits and it works well.
Sometimes it's good as well that, like, I had another band on who they were doing a rock song, and they got to the end of the song, and the outro of the song is like a solo section. But instead of it doing it on the lead guitar, they had a friend that played saxophone. Now the person on the sax was playing the same notes.
Yeah.
Harris would have played, but the fact that it would just switch to a different instrument, it sounded different. It changed the feeling. The whole thing, it just went in a direction that you weren't expecting in a good way. But it's that thing though that they're still doing the same thing that the guitarist would have played, but just transferring over to another instrument, it creates something new, something different that you weren't expecting, and it's a great thing. It's almost like an accidental mistake that turns out good.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like one of the tracks we borrowed a bass 6, and Craig used it in a couple of solos, that kind of Glenn Campbell kind of sound, and it worked. It really worked. The bass 6, it's a funny instrument, but
absolutely, it looks more like a guitar, plays more like a bass, but the strings are so much closer together that it's really comfortable to move round.
You
But that was an interesting one, getting the Arlonia Bass 6. I'd recommend it.
Yeah.
I'll try that, I think I will.
Yeah.
Can you remember a professional concert that you ever went to?
No, I'll let Craig go first.
Yeah. Are you brave enough to admit the first one that you went to?
Mine was not.
For me, I usually start by telling people the second one I went to. It was a bit like the Sarah Brightman moment. The second one I went to was the Associates, and the third one I went to was the Pastels and the Membranes and the Dragsters, and it was but the first one I actually went to was the only time that I was in the Apollo in Glasgow.
Right.
And it was Joan Armatrading.
Right.
And
what year would that have been?
it was the very start of 1985.
Right.
The funny story, by a year or so later, I was a kind of young indie kid going to see loads of kind of bands in Glasgow, and we were having a discussion in my English class, and my teacher, we were asking the teacher, what bands have you been to see and who? And she said, oh, you wouldn't know, none of you would know them. And I had all this kind of spiky hair and looking cool.
Yeah.
Then. And she said, oh, was it Joan Armatrading? And I was like, I was there. And she said, no, you weren't. No, shut up. And I said, no. And gave her a list of songs that she played and who the support band was. And she genuinely had to walk away shaking her head. Yeah. Still great.
Mine is a bit cooler, actually. Mine is the Jam at the Magnum Centre.
That's cool.
Aye, down in Irvine. And then I caught the Jam again at the Apollo, their last ever tour. But I was full of that Eldorado wine and I fell asleep halfway through the gig.
So you're learning your instruments sort of across your teenage years, played in various bands, bits and pieces. I know that Dewey Lester in the 603 has been a long time in the making, but how did the collaboration initially come together?
Right.
Basically, it was, I don't know, how many years ago?
35.
35 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just sort of, I was going to start this sort of band, and Craig appeared that it was a community education place down, and I've just had a seagull land around my caravan roof.
Yeah, we're sitting in a caravan. So if you hear a seagull, it's none of us.
It's up here. Oh, sorry. I just threw me off there.
Yeah, the community education.
And Craig came in as a. It
was as a student then. I was doing my final placement, and this project was it was geared around music and young people from across Inverclyde that were interested in music, and through getting them into music, and those loads of bands started. Yeah. But also gave some young people opportunities to learn other skills that they took on to kind of workplaces. And there's some folk that, when I think on it, that came through that project that have earned a really good living through music as a result of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kevin's absolutely right. We met up. I was there as a student, but met a bunch of people that became lifelong friends, and a few years later I came back to that project to work, and it was the same people, and we were. You can then take it from there.
Mm-hmm. Then asked Craig, we were looking for a bass player and ready to record some stuff, and that's when we get Craig in to join the band, and
The rest is history, as they say.
yeah.
But I was going to ask as well, we were talking about this when we were listening to the album. What is the band's songwriting process? So do you have a songwriting process? Is there a main songwriter that brings the skeleton of the song, which you all then collaborate to make it the final product? Or how do you go about the songwriting?
Basically, I write all the songs.
Yeah. Kevin definitely puts the framework together, and writes everything. Then we get together, and I'll put bits onto that, and we'll talk about the structure. Mm-hmm. Kevin always kind of has the final say on it, but we'll talk about the structure, and I'll maybe throw in some ideas for lyrics, and I guess the lyrics do come second, but not far behind.
No. Sometimes I've got an idea of what lyrics or what I'm going to use, especially the Summer '72 album. It's basically a concept album. So all the ideas from the first track, and then there was a storyline which developed. Then
yeah, I mean the album itself, it flows really well.
Yeah,
and it's one of those things that, I mean, we're both old enough as well that you remember when you bought albums, right? Because everybody nowadays, it seems to be singles or maybe EPs.
Yeah.
Because there's this need to stay relevant, to constantly have something coming out. And I understand it's like a double-edged sword, because you maybe don't want to take a year out to go and make an album. But I'm old school. I like the idea of an album. I like working on a group of songs that belong together. And, we even said this, it's not like there's 12 songs on the album.
Yeah.
You pick 12 songs and just go, right, there they are. You've got to pick the correct first song, which then leads into the second song.
Yeah.
It tells a story, and it's got to end with a good song, and then you've got the artwork, and it's the overall package. And it's one of those things that I think as time goes on, it's sadly starting to, it's almost not relevant to a certain generation.
Yeah.
But, it was funny, like I asked someone that was on the podcast, I wasn't sure what age they were, and it turned out they were actually a lot younger than I was expecting. Yeah. But, I'd asked them, is artwork important? And they said they didn't even give it a thought. Like, they almost thought, like, why would you even need artwork? Or someone being like they'd never bought an album. And, I'm of the generation where you went out, you saved up, you bought an album, and, you'd be like, you'd be the same as myself. You might have bought an album simply based on the artwork. This is a cool album cover. I'm going to buy this. And hopefully the music is reflected in the artwork. But it all comes together. And that's what I liked about the album, is that you can tell that there was time and effort put in, not just the songs, but the song structure, the way that the album looks, and that to me is still important. It's still important to a lot of people, but I think maybe, I don't know, maybe if you're maybe 30 down the way, it's maybe not as relevant, because you've accessed music in a way when you were brought up compared to how we accessed music. And there's no right or wrong, but it's just how you kind of view it. But that's what I liked about the album, that you could tell. But I like the fact that you're saying, obviously, you've kind of came up with the structure of the songs, presented it to the other people, and everybody then sort of collaborates in order to make the song the finished product and to make it better overall. I know it's obviously maybe your baby to start with, but you do allow that collaboration as well. Yeah.
The one thing I would say about Kevin in terms of the preciousness of the songs is, they are very precious, but Kevin rarely says no to an idea. but it might not. The idea might not stick, but it'll always get given a chance. It'll always get given a listen and get an opportunity.
If it's going to add, if it's going to add to the track, why not?
It sounds like you're open to hearing all ideas, whether those ideas remain in the end product is you wait and see kind of thing. But I think that's a good thing for a band, because I've seen a lot of bands struggle when it comes to ego as well, when it's not left at the door. Now, a lot of bands will understand that we've got a main songwriter and they're happy to let that person almost kind of lead the band and get behind the ideas and to make those ideas better. But, it's a funny, I've seen ego destroy many a band as well.
Yeah. Bands should be open to other people's inputs, interpretations of what they think should be in the song. But if it comes down to a bottom line, it's if I don't want it in, it's not going in.
Yeah.
It sounds like you build the skeleton of the song, and everyone else gets to contribute to put the meat back on, put the meat on the bones.
Yeah.
And does that help with like the other people that you've got on the album, like Anna on vocals, Stuart on drums? Did they all contribute? Like, how did you get involved with all the different people on the album? How did you cross paths with them?
Sorry, that was me.
I'm starving. I need my dinner.
Most of them are people that I knew or friends of friends. Like Stu I had met before, but he's a friend of my very good friend Richie Dempsey, and Anna is a good friend of my wife. Jerry I'd known for 30 years, but hadn't ever. He never knew me as being somebody that did music. He just knew me as a guy around Glasgow and stuff.
Yeah.
Who else is on it? Jim was a friend of yours.
Yes, Jim Lang.
Yeah.
We get Jim into the band to do the demos and things, but he's a very talented boy.
Yeah.
And Jim is...
You'd probably be silly if you're surrounded by good musicians. You'd be silly to not at least ask for their thoughts on things and see what you kind of come up with as well.
Yeah. And how did you record the album? Was it done live with overdubs, or was it each instrument recorded separately then all mixed together, or was that
basically live then overdubs? Yeah. We'll do 3 takes or whatever, but get over the song and basically choose them
live.
Well, we discussed this a few times because we were wondering, is this live or is it maybe done with starting on the drums, layering everything on top? And there's not a right or a wrong way of doing it. I think some of it sometimes it depends on the style of music, what's the best way to record, but we felt that it had a really a live feel, but we felt that the songs, it probably lent itself better to the songs. So was it kind of like the rhythm section being recorded live and then overdubs afterwards?
Yeah. Well, basically, because we recorded it as a live band with a ghost vocal, but you can hear the spill. But when we're working on the drums, you could hear the vocal coming through the drum mics, because the 4 obbies or 5s were in the same room.
Yeah.
So basically, it was recorded live. But
it definitely adds character to the songs that might have been missing if it was recorded a different way.
Yeah.
But
it was very. There was atmosphere in the room, and I think hopefully we've captured that, and it's nice to hear that you...
Oh no, 100%. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you'd recorded it the other way, it would have sounded great as well.
Yeah.
But there is something that's different, and it's funny, I've spoke with quite a lot of bands about this, and there's a lot of bands that say, they're happy with the recordings sound great, but when the band plays live, there's a magic, there's a spark.
That X factor, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of bands find it difficult to capture that in the recordings.
Yeah.
But a lot of bands record the other way.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was going to ask was, and it's a component that's can be overlooked a lot of the times, but you obviously had Paul Savage producing. How important was it to have Paul on board?
In the end, it was incredibly important. It was never our initial idea to have Paul involved, but we got to know Paul and decided that we wanted him involved, and that he, such a talented guy, and he brought a lot to the table. One of the things that I'll add is that Paul's approach is it fitted perfectly with us, because he wasn't saying to us, right, okay, that's the recording done, you step away and I'll get on with mixing it. There's elements, as you were saying, that have been added to the songs right up to the last day of mixing.
Right.
Because new ideas were coming in. For instance, June and Lorelei is a perfect example. It's got the mandolin in there that wouldn't have been in there had it not been for the... it was added in the mix period.
Basically, within the last hour of mixing. So, well, I get it on.
And it makes it.
And with the haunting cello thing in the background, making all the that's a special song to me.
Yeah.
It's just a lovely wee thing.
Yeah.
So when we were listening to the album, we were kind of debating our favourite tracks, and it's hard to pick like certain songs. With each song is so written so well, it was hard to pick them. But we like Define Major's Prayer. There's a western feel to it. If and the last track, Staring Up the Window.
Yeah.
What are for each of you? What is your favourite track or tracks on the album?
I'll let Craig go.
Right. I like Theme for the 603 and I Always Knew. I would say they're both quite upbeat and, poppy, I suppose, but they're rich as well. But it's hard to pick. Who's your favourite child? Yeah.
Well, I like my favourite, I think, is Her Name Could Be Anybody, which it's another one of them special songs to me. I like the ballad of Dewey Lester, and talking about the ballad of Dewey Lester, the theme from the 603 was supposed to be the middle eight for the ballad of Dewey Lester.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Then I took that away, and because the ballad of Dewey Lester is basically two chords the whole way through. Her name could be anybody. And they're written in the same kind of vein, the same kind of style. But I took away the theme from the 603 thing, and I thought it needs other wee things. So that song that blossomed over basically about 6 months.
Yeah.
It wasn't one that I sat down and wrote. It's just that it followed
it kept developing.
Yeah.
So guys, we're still relatively early in 2025. So what is the plans for the rest of the year with regard to the band and the music?
I'll try and answer this, unless you've got plans.
No, I've got no plans. No.
The plans are literally limited, but I would love to do so much more with this, but it really is a struggle, and it's a struggle because we're at an age now that the kind of music scene that we were comfortable with has disappeared, and we don't really know. We're not part of that culture. Most of the people that I know that are in bands are in bands that have got people to do all these things for them, and that would be nice. It would be lovely to have somebody to do it, or at least guide us as to how to get this out to a far wider audience. Play down south, play anywhere, But we've got a couple of gigs on the horizon. But both of them are in Glasgow. And if you know any venues that would be willing to take us, please let us know.
Well, you probably know more than me, but I'm so used to obviously we work day jobs, but I play gigs in the evening, but it's more the pub ones, the songs just as a way of making extra money. And I done one at the weekend, and I swear to God, I walked into the place. Place was absolutely heaving because it was the Easter weekend.
Yeah.
And I actually phoned up my missus, and I was like, see, if I wasn't playing in this pub, I wouldn't be here because I'm at least 20 years older than every single person in this pub.
Yeah.
That time you start to feel your age.
Yes.
But I suppose we're talking obviously about technology, the internet, but the beauty of it is that you can it's so easy to get your music out there.
Yeah.
Maybe how do you get it heard, because there's so much music, how do you get people to find it? But that's part of the reason why I started the podcast, is that I didn't do it to try and make money or to try and do this or that. I love music, and I love all different types of music. And I like talking to musicians from all different backgrounds. And then obviously when I collaborate with Gav and we do the album reviews, Gav's got a different opinion from myself. So it just keeps it interesting. And, I suppose that is the beauty of the internet, is that you can get these type of things out there, and it's a different perspective on your music. You're getting to watch us react to your music for the first time. And we're recognising the things that maybe you didn't think of.
Absolutely.
It keeps it interesting, but obviously we do wish you all the continued success. Hopefully there's more music on the horizon as well, but what we like to do is we like to ask some fun questions before we finish up. So random questions, we'll ask you them, you just tell us what pops into your head, okay? So imagine you could go back in time anywhere in the world. Big gig, small gig, I'll let you choose for yourself which one, but what's the one concert that you wish that you could have attended?
I'll answer first. The Monterey Pop Festival, 1967. The whole weekend.
Yep.
It would have been.
That's bizarre, because I went first, I would have said the very same thing. Monterey Pop.
Yeah. Steve, the Buffalo.
Do you know what? Because they're actually the first people to say that. There's quite a few people have said Woodstock.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of people have said Live Aid.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think I would have picked any of those, but it's still a good pick anyway, though.
Well, same answer on this as well. There's hundreds of thousands of songs recorded through the history of time. What one song would you have loved to be in the studio to witness being recorded and laid down on tape?
That's a good one. Do you know?
The Nas Open My Eyes, Todd Rundgren, in a wee studio in Philadelphia in 1968, and watching how because they definitely didn't play that song live. I saw tape edits, and it's all been in the phasing and things.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is the recording equipment used back then was so primitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it almost forced the band into being as creative as possible, I think, for those types of bands.
I think I would. There's loads, but I would maybe go for something at the Motown studios. I think hearing the Funk Brothers and seeing how they interacted and how the vocals then fitted with all that, or Dusty in Memphis, something like that, you know. Well,
I mean, there's so many, and you could even pick from each decade. There's always somebody fascinating that you could pick and go, that great band, or that's a great song. To be a fly on the wall, you know, it would have been pretty cool as well.
It must have been great in the southern states of America when you'd like Sun Studios and Muscle Shoals and
it
must have been vibrant.
A lot of it was recorded live.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was talking with someone not too long ago, and it was who was it now? It was who done the song "Mess Around"? Ray Charles, "Mess Around," and it was clearly recorded live. You know, when there was the one mic in the studio. It gets to the solo section, and you can see like the trumpet player stepping forward, so he's slightly closer to the mic because it goes up, and then he steps, and it's the next person's turn. But it's absolutely fascinating, and it's almost like, you know, recording nowadays, it can be too perfect.
Absolutely,
But at the same time, it can also be perfect. You know, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
I think the talent that you had to have to be willing to go into a studio. Look, I love Louie because of the very obvious mistake in there where the vocalist comes in at the wrong point. And that's great because they left it in.
They left it in.
But then you hear those, especially the old songs where there is those wee mistakes, but they keep it in, and it adds character.
Yeah. It's like a coaster track. It's like coasters. I'm a hog for you, baby. Like the guitar solo. It's just one note for 30 seconds.
Brilliant.
But it sounds good. It sounds good.
Yeah.
That's my kind of guitar solo.
I'm capable of that type of solo as well.
As a bass player through and through.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite album cover?
Oh, I like oh god, that's
or covers?
Revolver the Beatles is one, which is a Klaus Voormann. Great cover, great design.
I can't pick the Beatles. You know what? Simply because it was getting played a lot last week with Clem Burke, I think, and I mentioned it earlier, Parallel Lines. It is, and you know the thing about that, I always thought, but as a 8, 9, 10-year-old when I first saw it, I thought it was a photograph, but it's not. It's a montage. It's, you know, and that.
So it's not a photo. It's not an actual photo.
No.
It's one thing I still love is a good album cover or EP or singles. I just think you've spent all that time creating that great music. Don't drop your guard and just put anything on top of it. You've got to have a great album cover to support.
Yeah. Our album cover is it's all family and us. That's on there.
It was said, but we like the old theme to it because you don't even print out pictures anymore.
Absolutely.
I know. And then the last question for you, and again, the answer, it can change every day, so we'll just get your answer for today. Mount Rushmore, for each of you, who is the 4 bands or musicians for yourself that you just see as perfection?
I'm going to start with McCartney. I think, I think he's incredible. He did the frog chorus, but that goes exactly.
We'll let him go for it.
Right, you go for one.
Oh, I'll go for one. Talking about earlier, the Nas. 3 albums of total perfection. The first one in particular. Then just the way that Nas, then Nas.
That's how to name your album, isn't it? I don't want to call Summer 73.
Or summer, 73.
Anybody else? Whether it be a band or musician? Any other bands or musicians there?
Yeah, I think a female, Sandy Denny.
Sandy Denny, Dusty
Yeah.
Springfield.
Dusty,
Yeah. But I love. I've got I love Maureen. A woman called Maureen Evans. She was a Welsh singer from the late 50s, early 60s, and I was infatuated with her. It's just a voice. On the old Woolworths Embassy records, then she went to Oriole, then on to CBS. But I've collected her records for years. So,
Well, guys, thank you so much for making a little bit of time out of your evening to come on, speak to myself and Gav about all things music. Thank you to Jen, who obviously sent across the album and allowing us to obviously review it as well. Like the album, hopefully you enjoyed the review. And
yeah, it was great. Thank you.
obviously, for anybody that's watching, they can give you a follow on social media. The album itself, it's available for download on all the various different streaming platforms as well. So definitely check it out. And we do wish you all the continued success and hope to see you out gigging and more music in the future as well.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, lads. Cheers.
So enjoy your evening. Cheers.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.